Okay, I have the original Immortal chess game. This is the Immortal chess game of the gentleman Adolf Anderssen. Everybody that knows him, knew him, said he was just a gentleman and a saint. Yeah, Adolf Anderssen here playing against Lionel Kieseritzky. This was played during the World's Fair back in 1851, which was played in London. And it was actually Howard Staunton that organized this tournament between 16 of the strongest players in the world at the time. People were saying that Howard Staunton was the strongest player in the world. He was world champion back in 1851, including Howard Staunton was saying that, especially after the 1843 victory of this Pierre Charles Fournier de Saint Amant here. So that guy was considered the world's strongest. Staunton beat him soundly, so people were saying he was world champion, and he wanted to kind of solidify himself as world champion. So he set up this great tournament, and 16 of the strongest players in the world, including Adolf Anderssen and Lionel Kieseritzky, met for this tournament. This Immortal game wasn't actually played in the tournament. It was actually played at Simpson's on the Strand, which was kind of a club type bar with all kinds of spirits and beer and probably lots of cigarette smoke. And it was probably a very noisy environment for a chess game. But nonetheless, the Strand is where this Immortal game was played. Kieseritzky was actually the kind of the chess master of the Café de la Régence in France. And this was a very popular chess cafe. They had chess masters on staff to help teach people how to play the game. And Lionel Kieseritzky, that was his job. So yeah, Café de la Régence. And still kind of a chess mecca. Adolf Anderssen was a math professor, and he also did chess puzzles. He published chess puzzles and did chess columns kind of on the side besides being a professor. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the Immortal game. So Adolf Anderssen begins with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5 by Kieseritzky, and now we have the King's Gambit with pawn to f4. We have it accepted as pawn captures, e captures f4, and now bishop to c4 here. I love the King's Gambit. It's an opening that I enjoy playing, although I usually play knight to f3 here, preventing this next move. Kieseritzky goes ahead and plays queen to h4, which is an okay move. This does make some sense, even though he is developing his queen a bit early. In this position, it's going to force Anderssen to move his king. He moves his king to f1. And now we have pawn to b5 here. This is called the Brian counter gambit, which is a bit of a strange opening. But yeah, the idea is just getting the bishop off of this nasty diagonal here, attacking that square. And Anderssen goes ahead and grabs the free pawn. And now we have knight to f6 by Kieseritzky, actually developing piece. We're not going to see much of that from Kieseritzky in this game. And now we have knight to f3 attacking the queen by Anderssen. So he lost a tempo by moving his king, but now he's gaining a tempo by attacking the queen. Queen back to h6 is the best move in the position. And now we have pawn to d3. The engine says that this is a mistake. What should have been done instead is pushing the pawn here, but with the d pawn sitting on d2 still, the knight can go here and is threatening this nasty fork here, considering that the pawn is pinned. That would win the rook. So it makes sense to me that Anderssen played the way that he did here. We have knight to h5, a very strange move there. Knights on the rim are grim. Of course, the idea is going for that fork that I just mentioned. Because of that pin, the pawn really shouldn't take the knight. Probably a better move would have just been to try to get, attack this bishop again, push that bishop back, but okay. Adolf Anderssen plays a very strange move as well. He plays knight to h4, but this does make some sense. The computer actually suggests rook to g1 as his strongest move in this position, but that's a pretty hard move to find as being the best move. Now, Kieseritzky moved his queen again. What has he moved his queen 3-4 times now? And of course, this is attacking the knight and it's attacking the bishop at the same time. This is a fork, pretty hard to deal with. Maybe you want to pause your video and think about what would you do in this position if you were playing for white. How can you save the knight and the bishop? You'd have to find the move that Adolf Anderssen found. And yeah, if you wanted to check that out, hopefully you've already paused your video, but I'm going to go ahead and continue now. We have knight to f5. This is the best move in the position, saves the hanging knight, saves the bishop at the same time. And now we do see pawn to c6, which is definitely a solid move in the position, although maybe pushing the pawn over here might have been better. But yeah, this move, pawn to c6, is just fine. And now we have pawn to g4 by Anderssen. You know, attacking the knight, saying, hey, if you want to take the bishop, capturing to the outside, well then I'll take your knight. Probably better just to move the bishop back, but this move does make some sense. And now Kieseritzky repositions his knight back to f6 again. So he's moved his queen several times, he's moved his knight several times. This is not ideal chess play, but this was the best move for him in the position at the time. And now we have rook to g1. So just letting the bishop hang here. And this is actually the best move in the position. Rook to g1 is the best move. You don't have to worry about the bishop because really black should not capture. He does capture, and this is a blunder. He should not have done that. Instead, he should have played h5. Should have played pawn to h5. So if instead he plays pawn to h5, then best move for white would be pawn to h4, queen back to g6, pawn to g5 by white, and now the knight can come to g4, bishop takes pawn on f4, pawn takes bishop on b5 now, and yeah, black is winning in this position. Black has the advantage. His pieces aren't very well coordinated, but he has material advantage, and this is a defensible position. In fact, black should be able to win this position under correct play. That's not what happened on the board, though, and we'll go back to that original position. Yeah, so Kieseritzky captured the bishop on b5. We have pawn to h4 as expected here by Adolf Anderssen attacking the queen. The queen is forced back to g6, only move. Pawn to h5 attacking the queen again, and the queen has to move yet again, this time to g5. So moving that piece like crazy, and now Adolf Anderssen finds the strongest move in the position. He plays queen to f3, and now there's a big problem here. What is Kieseritzky going to do? You can see that the queen is about to be trapped with bishop captures here, and there's nowhere to go. The knight's taking away the escape squares, so this would lose the queen. And so kind of an ignominious move here. Knight back to g8. Knight back to g8 by Kieseritzky. And, of course, leaving room for the queen to escape. So, yeah, really an unfortunate move, having to undevelop your pieces. So now Kieseritzky's only piece he has developed is a queen. Everything else is sitting back on their starting squares. Pretty hilarious, really. That's like a bad joke. Now, of course, Adolf Anderssen grabs that pawn on f4. Bishop captures on f4, attacking the queen. Best square for the queen is here on f6. And now Adolf Anderssen develops his knight to c3. We have bishop develops to c5 by Lionel Kieseritzky. And now Adolf Anderssen plays a surprising move, knight to d5. Attacking the queen, yeah, but like begging the queen to capture on b2. It seems like kind of a crazy move. Best move in the position for black is queen captures on b2, as you might expect. And now Adolf Anderssen actually blunders here. He plays bishop to d6 here, and this is actually a mistake. If Kieseritzky would have played this right, this would not be the Immortal game. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that line. So what Kieseritzky should have done is just captured the rook with check, of course. This makes more sense. So he picks up in the actual game, he grabbed the rook on g1 instead, which is not a checking move. We should always consider checking moves first. So considering that he was the master of the Café de la Raison, you'd think he would have known that, but okay. Then, the king would be forced to move, e2, probably the best square, and then you could pick up the rook on g1, picking up rooks on consecutive moves. It's difficult to say what is best here. Probably, I mean, you might capture the knight here, or the move that Adolf Anderssen does play later in the game. Pawn to e5 is actually a really solid move here, because if you can block that, well then, then you can play this checking move here, and you can force a mate in 3. But yeah, this position at this point is an advantage. I mean, black has the advantage. If again he would have played queen captures rook first. That's not what happened in the game, though. We'll go back to the actual position that happened on the board. Yeah, so Adolf Anderssen plays bishop to d6, and Lionel Kieseritzky actually plays bishop captures on g1. And Stockfish calls this a missed win. It says that, yeah, if he would have played queen captures rook, then he would have won this game. But yeah, he plays the incorrect move here, and now we have pawn to e5. Pawn to e5 by Adolf Anderssen, and this is just a brilliant move. The idea again is to block the queen's defense of this g7 square. That's the whole purpose of that move. And now Kieseritzky does grab the rook here. This is the best move in the position. Adolf Anderssen, of course, has to move his king. He moves to e2. And now we have knight to a6. And this is, again, a blunder. Yeah, it's mate in 3 now. There's no way to stop checkmate under correct play because of this blocking move. Anyway, maybe you can spot the mate in 3. So it's checkmate in 3 moves. Adolf Anderssen does play this line. Pause your video if you want to think about it. And actually, we'll come back to that. Let's take a look at what Kieseritzky should have done. And it's actually pretty simple. He should have just moved his bishop. He should have just moved his bishop, and then there would be no checkmate. If he moved his bishop there, there'd just be no way to force mate. But that's not what he did. Again, he moved his knight here, and there is a forced mate in 3 if you can find it. Hopefully you pause your video if you intend to solve it. But yeah, so knight captures on g7. That was the whole point of this e5 move. The king is forced over, and now the beautiful queen sacrifice. Queen to f6 check. Knight captures f6, and then bishop to e7 is checkmate. And that was the end of the Immortal game of Adolf Anderssen. Adolf Anderssen, yeah, he did go on to win the entire tournament, as you can kind of see in this diagram. And Howard Staunton did not. So after this tournament, in 1851, pretty much everybody said that Adolf Anderssen was a world champion for another 7 years, until Paul Morphy came just blazing onto the scene and just destroyed everybody. So that was the Immortal game of Adolf Anderssen. Thank you for joining me for that. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, as I will be making many more game reviews as well as some tactics. And yeah, please let me know if you are interested in a particular player that I might do a review on. Thank you for joining me. Do check me out on Patreon. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.